I sent a text to the wrong person at 10:52 p.m. on a Thursday night, and by 11:13 p.m., my entire life had cracked open like an egg against the edge of a counter. The message wasn't supposed to go to her. It was supposed to go to Darius, my best friend since college, the man who'd been trying to get me back into the dating world for 4 years with the subtlety of a sledgehammer. But my thumb slipped. The screen glowed. Delivered. Then those two cursed words appeared underneath. Read 10:53 p.m. My name is Malik Jennings. I'm 35 years old, black, widowed, and the father of a 7-year-old girl named Zara who has a congenital heart condition that requires checkups every 3 months and a stack of medical bills that would make a CEO weep. I work as a data analyst at Novatech, a mid-sized tech company in Seattle where I've spent the last 5 years writing clean code, fixing other people's mistakes, and keeping my head down. I'm good at my job. Good enough that I should have been promoted twice by now. But I'm also good at saying no when my boss, Preston Hale, asks me to massage numbers to make quarterly reports look better than reality. Dignity costs money sometimes. I've learned to pay that price. The woman I accidentally texted was Victoria Ashford. She's 39, the CEO of Novatech, and she transferred from our Boston office 8 months ago with a reputation that preceded her like thunder before lightning. Cold, brilliant, untouchable. The kind of woman who walks into a boardroom and every conversation stops not because she demands it, but because the air itself seems to rearrange around her presence. She has dark hair she wears pulled back so tight it looks like it hurts. Gray eyes that miss nothing and a way of looking at you that makes you want to either confess your sins or run for the nearest exit. I'd been attracted to her since month 2, not the kind of attraction that makes you stupid, but the kind that sits in your chest like a stone you can't cough up. The kind where you notice the exact moment her expression softens when someone mentions their kids, or the way she takes her coffee with 2 sugars even though she tells everyone she drinks it black. The kind where you catch yourself looking for her in meetings you don't even need to attend. But Victoria Ashford was my CEO. I was a mid-level analyst with a daughter who needed me stable and present. We existed in different solar systems. That's what I told myself every single day for 6 months, and I believed it right up until the moment I sent her a text message that said, "You're captivating in ways I can't articulate." I know this crosses professional lines, but silence felt dishonest. I hope this doesn't create discomfort. The panic that followed was immediate and total. I sat on my worn gray couch in my small Capitol Hill apartment, one hand gripping my phone like it might explode, the other pressed against my chest where my heart was trying to break through my ribcage. The apartment was quiet except for the hum of the refrigerator and the distant sound of traffic on Pike Street. My laptop sat open on the coffee table, some Reddit thread about database optimization glowing on the screen. I'd been fine 10 minutes ago. Now I was staring at my phone screen watching those 2 words, read 10:53 p.m., like they were a countdown to detonation. I called Darius. He picked up on the second ring. His voice came through rough with sleep. "This better be good, man. I got work tomorrow." The words tumbled out. "I just texted Victoria Ashford the message you sent me, the one about being captivating and crossing professional lines. I meant to send it back to you so we could laugh about how ridiculous it was. But I hit the wrong thread, and now she's read it, and I'm going to get fired and lose my health insurance, and Zara's surgery is in 6 weeks, and Darius cut through my spiral with the calm of a man who'd talked me off ledges before. "Breathe, right now, in through your nose." I breathed. It didn't help. His tone shifted, less sleep, more focus. "Okay." Did she respond? I looked at my phone. The screen was still on the message thread. No new text, no indication she was typing, just that damning read receipt staring back at me like an accusation. The answer came out as a whisper. "Not yet." Darius was quiet for 3 seconds, then, She's probably trying to figure out how to respond professionally. You're not fired yet. Maybe she'll just ignore it. Let it blow over. Hope flickered in my chest for exactly 4 seconds. Then my phone buzzed in my hand and I nearly dropped it. A new message from Victoria Ashford appeared on the screen. Stay where you are. I need to talk to you. In person. The hope died. In its place came something worse than panic. Dread mixed with confusion, mixed with a strange small part of me that wondered what in person meant at 10:58 p.m. on a Thursday night. I read the message to Darius. His response was instant. Oh, you're dead or you're about to get lucky. Honestly, 50-50 at this point. That didn't help either. I told him I'd call him later and hung up before he could say anything else. Then I stood up, paced to the window, paced back to the couch, checked my phone again even though only 30 seconds had passed. The message was still there. Real. Demanding. My apartment felt too small suddenly. The exposed brick walls seemed closer than they should be. The second-hand furniture I'd bought after Simone died. The discount kitchen table with 2 mismatched chairs. The bookshelf Zara had helped me assemble last year with more enthusiasm than skill. All of it pressed in on me. This was my life. Small, controlled, safe, and I'd just thrown a grenade into the center of it. I thought about Simone, my wife, dead 4 years from breast cancer that metastasized faster than any of the doctors predicted. She'd made me promise 2 things in the hospital the week before she died. 1, take care of Zara no matter what. 2, find happiness again, even if it scared me. I'd kept the first promise every single day. The second one I'd buried so deep I almost convinced myself it didn't count. My phone buzzed again. Another message from Victoria. I'll be there in 15 minutes. 15 minutes. I looked around my apartment with fresh horror. Zara's drawings covered half the refrigerator. Her backpack sat by the door where she'd dropped it after school. One of her shoes was in the middle of the living room floor for reasons I couldn't explain. The sink had 3 days' worth of dishes I kept meaning to wash. My laundry basket sat in the corner overflowing with clothes that were technically clean but hadn't made it to the dresser yet. I moved, fast, dishes into the dishwasher, laundry basket shoved into my bedroom. Zara's shoe reunited with its partner by the door. I was wiping down the kitchen counter when I heard her. A light sound from down the hallway. Footsteps, small, uneven. Zara appeared in the doorway of the living room, one hand rubbing her eye, her purple nightgown twisted around her small frame. She was 7 years old, rail thin from the medication she took for her heart, with her mother's warm brown skin and my stubborn chin. Her hair was pulled back into 2 puffs that had gone lopsided during sleep. Her voice came out thick and confused. "Daddy, why are you cleaning at 11? My heart, which had been racing for the last 8 minutes, somehow found another gear. I knelt down to her level, putting on the smile I'd perfected over 4 years of single parenting. The one that said everything is fine even when it absolutely wasn't. The lie came easy from practice. Just tidying up a little, baby, couldn't sleep. Why are you awake? She shuffled closer, her bare feet making soft sounds on the hardwood floor. I heard you talking loud on the phone. Are you in trouble? Kids see everything. That's what Simone used to say. You think you're hiding it, but they know. They always know. I pulled Zara into a hug, breathing in the smell of the lavender shampoo we used on wash nights. I'm not in trouble, a friend from work is coming by to talk about something. But it's late, so you need to go back to bed, okay? She pulled back, looking at me with those wide brown eyes that missed nothing. The lady with sad eyes? My stomach dropped. What? Zara reached into the pocket of her nightgown and pulled out a folded piece of paper. She unfolded it carefully, the way she did with all her drawings, and held it up for me to see. The image was rendered in crayon, A woman with dark hair, gray eyes, and a straight line for a mouth. No smile. The detail was impressive for a 7-year-old. The expression was heartbreaking. The words came out quieter than I intended. "Who is this?" Zara looked at the drawing like the answer was obvious. "The boss lady you talk about sometimes. Miss Victoria. I drew her today during art time at school. Mrs. Chen said I was very observant." I took the drawing, studying it. The proportions were off the way kid drawings always are, but the essence was there. Victoria's sharp features, the set of her shoulders, and yes, the sadness in her eyes that I'd noticed but never acknowledged out loud. My throat felt tight. "Why did you draw her sad?" Zara climbed onto the couch, tucking her feet under her. "Because she is sad, Daddy. You said she works all the time and eats lunch by herself. That's lonely. Lonely makes people sad." I'd forgotten I'd mentioned that. One night at dinner, maybe 3 weeks ago, Zara had asked about my day and I'd told her about seeing Victoria eating alone in her office through the glass walls, working through lunch while everyone else gathered in the break room. I'd thought it was a throwaway comment. Apparently, Zara had filed it away and turned it into art. Before I could respond, 3 sharp knocks echoed through the apartment. Confident, certain, the kind of knock that didn't doubt it would be answered. Zara's eyes went wide. "Is that her?" I looked at the clock on the microwave. 11:13 p.m., exactly 15 minutes since Victoria's last text. The second round of knocks came. Same rhythm, same certainty. I stood up, my legs feeling less solid than they should. "Go back to your room, baby. I'll handle this." Zara didn't move. She was watching me with that too smart expression she got sometimes, the one that made her seem older than 7. "Are you scared of her?" The honest answer sat in my throat, but I swallowed it. "I'm not scared. I just need you to give me some privacy for a few minutes, okay? Please?" She slid off the couch, taking her drawing with her. But she stopped at the hallway entrance, looking back at me. "Daddy, you should give her this. Maybe it'll make her smile." Then she padded back down the hall to her room, leaving the folded drawing on the arm of the couch. I stood there for 2 seconds, staring at that piece of paper. Then the knocks came again, and I realized I'd kept the CEO of my company waiting outside my door for close to a minute. I walked to the door, my hand hovered over the lock. This was it, the moment. Whatever happened next would define whether I still had a job tomorrow, whether Zara's medical bills would get paid, whether the small, stable life I'd built in the ruins of Simone's death would hold together or collapse. I opened the door. Victoria Ashford stood in the hallway under the dim overhead light that flickered every 3rd second. She wasn't wearing what I'd expected. No power suit, no armor. Instead, she had on dark jeans, a black sweater that looked soft and expensive, and a wool coat folded over one arm. Her hair was down. I'd never seen her hair down before. It fell just past her shoulders in dark waves that made her look younger, more human, less like the untouchable executive who terrified middle management. Her gray eyes locked onto mine, and I saw something in them I hadn't expected. Not anger, not professional distance, something raw, vulnerable almost. Her voice came out quieter than it ever did at work. "Malik." Just my name. No title, no formality. The way she said it made my chest tighten. I stepped back, my hand still on the door. "Ms. Ashford, I am so sorry. That text was meant for my friend Darius. We were joking around and I copied it to send back to him, but I hit the wrong thread and I swear I wasn't trying to." She held up one hand, cutting me off mid-spiral. "Stop." I stopped. She walked past me into the apartment, moving with the same decisive energy she brought to every boardroom. But there was something different in it now. Less performance, more genuine. She set her coat on the back of my cheap armchair and turned to face me, her eyes scanning the small space, the drawings on the fridge, The backpack by the door, the coffee table with its water rings and stack of medical bills I'd been avoiding. When she spoke again, her voice had an edge that felt like honesty sharpened to a point. I read your message 4 times, Malik. 4. And every time I tried to find a way to interpret it as a mistake or a joke or anything other than what it clearly was. Don't insult both of us by lying now. The words hit me like cold water. I closed the door behind me, the click sounding too loud in the quiet apartment. My hands felt empty, useless. I don't understand why you're here. She took 2 steps closer, not too close. Just close enough that I could see the faint shadows under her eyes, the tension in her jaw, the way her hands were clenched at her sides like she was holding something back. When the words came, they came fast, like she'd been rehearsing them the entire drive over. I came because I've been eating alone in a corner office for 8 months. Because I'm 39 years old and I'm successful by every metric that matters to the board. And I go home to an empty apartment every single night and sit in the dark because turning on the lights makes the emptiness worse. I came because when I read your text for about 10 seconds, I wasn't the CEO. I was just Victoria, a woman who was seen. Something in my chest cracked open. The professional distance I'd been trying to maintain, the careful boundary between boss and employee, all of it evaporated in the face of that raw admission. I heard myself say, I do see you. Her eyes searched mine. Then don't take it back. Don't apologize for it. If you meant it even a little, then stand in it. The air between us felt charged, like right before a thunderstorm when the pressure drops and you can taste metal on your tongue. I wanted to say something smart, something that would fix this, make it safe again. But safety felt like a lie right now, so I told her the truth. I've noticed you since month 2. The way you take your coffee with 2 sugars even though you tell everyone it's black. The way your expression changes when someone talks about their kids in meetings. The way you... I stopped, realizing I was about to cross a line I couldn't uncross. She didn't let me stop. The way I what? My voice came out quieter. The way you look so lonely even when you're surrounded by people. Victoria's breath caught. For 3 seconds, she just stood there, frozen. Then something in her face shifted. The CEO mask, the one I'd watched her wear for 8 months, fell away completely. Her voice cracked on the edges. I am lonely. I have been for 3 years, since before Boston, since before this job. I tell myself work is enough. That building something matters more than building a life, but every night I drive home and I wonder if this is it. If this is all there is. Success and silence. I'd spent 4 years in a version of that same silence. Different reasons, same result. The words came out before I could stop them. I know that silence. I have Zara, so it's not the same. But after 8:30, after bedtime stories and checking her breathing and making sure her meds are logged, yeah, I know it. Victoria's eyes glistened. You're widowed. It wasn't a question. She'd clearly read my file at some point, but hearing her say it out loud, in my living room at 11:20 p.m., felt intimate in a way that made my throat tight. I nodded. 4 years. Cancer. She made me promise I'd find happiness again, but I've been so focused on taking care of Zara and keeping everything stable that I forgot how. Victoria took another step closer. We were in dangerous territory now, standing in my living room with confessions hanging in the air between us like smoke. We can't do this at work. The statement landed like a door closing. I felt the weight of it, the finality. I understand. She shook her head, a small, almost sad smile touching her lips. You don't. I'm not saying we can't do this. I'm saying we can't do this at work. Rules exist for good reasons. Reporting lines, power dynamics, all of it. I won't compromise your career or mine by blurring those lines. Hope flickered back to life in my chest, small but persistent. Then what are you saying? Victoria looked past me toward the hallway where Zara had disappeared. Is she asleep? The question caught me off guard. Probably not. She woke up when I was on the phone earlier. As if summoned by the mention, footsteps sounded from the hallway. Soft, hesitant. I turned to see Zara standing in the doorway again, her purple nightgown still twisted, her eyes locked on Victoria with the kind of focused attention she usually reserved for new puzzles or interesting bugs. She walked forward slowly, stopping a few feet from Victoria. Then she held out the folded drawing. Her voice was small but clear. I drew you today. Victoria looked at me. Confusion and something else, nervousness maybe, flickering across her face. I gave a small nod of encouragement. Whatever this was, Zara had started it. Let it play out. Victoria knelt down, bringing herself to Zara's eye level. She took the drawing carefully, unfolding it with the kind of reverence you'd give something precious. When she saw the image, her breath hitched audibly. Zara spoke before Victoria could. You have sad eyes, like the lady in the story Daddy reads me about, the queen who forgot how to smile, but in the story she remembers when someone gives her something beautiful. So I drew you something beautiful, so you can remember too. I watched Victoria's face as she stared at the drawing, watched the way her jaw tightened, the way she blinked rapidly like she was trying to keep something back. When she looked up at Zara, tears were running down her cheeks. Her voice came out wrecked. This is the most beautiful thing anyone's given me in a very long time. Zara stepped forward and, with the kind of casual intimacy only children possess, wiped one of Victoria's tears away with her thumb. You're crying. Did I make you sad? Victoria's laugh was broken glass and honey. No, sweetheart, you made me feel seen. That's different. Zara considered this with the seriousness of a Supreme Court justice. Then she nodded and looked back at me. Daddy, I like her. She should stay. Victoria stood up slowly, the drawing still in her hand. She looked at me over Zara's head, and in her eyes I saw something I recognized because I felt it too. Terror mixed with hope, mixed with the overwhelming sense that something had just shifted in a way that couldn't be undone. I found my voice. Zara, it's late. You need to go back to bed for real this time. Zara sighed the way 7-year-olds sigh when adults are being particularly dense. Fine, but Miss Victoria should come back when it's not bedtime. We could make pancakes. She said it like it was the simplest thing in the world. Like inviting the CEO of a tech company to make pancakes in our cramped kitchen was perfectly normal and reasonable. Victoria's voice came out soft. I'd like that. Zara beamed. Then she looked at both of us with an expression that was far too knowing. Are you gonna kiss? In the movies, people always kiss after crying. My face went hot. Zara Marie Jennings' bed. Now! She giggled and ran back down the hallway. I heard her bedroom door close with a soft click. The silence that followed was different from before, heavier, more aware. Victoria looked down at the drawing in her hands. Your daughter is remarkable. I moved closer, my voice low. She sees things other people miss. Always has. Victoria met my eyes. Apparently that runs in the family. The distance between us was maybe 3 feet, close enough to see the way her breathing had changed, the way her fingers trembled slightly against the paper. I made myself ask the question that mattered. What happens now? She took a breath, set the drawing carefully on my coffee table. Then she turned back to me, and I saw the CEO re-emerge, but gentler this time. Still in control, but with the armor adjusted to show the person underneath. Her words came measured, careful. Now we acknowledge that something exists here, something real, but we also acknowledge that I'm your CEO, and you report indirectly through Preston to me. We can't navigate that at work without it becoming a problem for both of us. I felt the door closing again. So we pretend nothing happened. She stepped closer, 1 foot, then another. Now we were barely 2 feet apart, close enough that I could smell her perfume. Something subtle and expensive. Her voice dropped lower. No, we don't pretend. We set boundaries, clear ones, no flirting at the office, no texts during work hours unless it's actually about work. If we see each other, it's outside the office, away from anyone who could turn this into gossip or leverage. My heart was doing something complicated in my chest. You want to see me, outside of work? She reached out, and her hand found mine. Her fingers were warm, her grip steady. Saturday, Pike Place Market, 10 a.m. If you bring Zara, bring her. I want to know your whole life, not just the parts that fit into professional boxes. I looked down at our joined hands. 4 years I'd been alone. 4 years I'd told myself it was easier this way, safer this way, better for Zara this way. And now this woman, this brilliant, lonely, complicated woman, was standing in my living room at 11:30 p.m., holding my hand and asking to be part of my messy, medical bill-laden, single-father life. The words came out rough. I'm scared. Victoria's grip tightened. Good. Me too. But I'm tired of letting fear make all my decisions. She started to pull away, reaching for her coat. I held onto her hand for one more second. Victoria. She stopped, looked back. I pulled her closer, slow, giving her time to object or step back or remember she was the CEO and I was just an analyst who couldn't afford to lose his health insurance. She didn't do any of those things. Instead, she closed the last 6 inches between us. Her free hand coming up to rest against my chest, right over my heart. Her voice was barely a whisper. Are we doing this? I could feel her heartbeat through her sweater. Fast, nervous, alive. I think we already did. She leaned in. I met her halfway. The kiss was soft at first, tentative, like we were both testing whether this was real or if it would evaporate the moment our lips touched. But it was real. God, it was real. Her mouth was warm and she tasted like coffee and something sweet I couldn't name. My hand found the small of her back, pulling her closer, and she made a small sound that went straight to my chest and detonated something I'd kept locked down for 4 years. When we pulled apart, both of us breathing harder than the kiss warranted, she rested her forehead against mine. She spoke first. We can't do this at work. I was still holding her. You said that already. A small laugh escaped her. I know. I'm trying to convince myself it's possible to keep this separate. To be professional Victoria in the office and this Victoria everywhere else. I pulled back just enough to look at her. If it gets complicated, if it threatens your job or mine, if it becomes a problem, she put her finger against my lips. Then we deal with it like adults, with honesty. But Malik, I don't want to plan the ending before we've even had the beginning. That made sense. More sense than the fear that kept trying to claw its way up my throat. She stepped back, picking up her coat. I walked her to the door. We stood there for a moment, neither of us quite ready to end whatever this was. Her hand found the doorknob. Saturday, 10 a.m. Don't overthink it. I managed something that might have been a smile. Too late for that. She leaned in and kissed me again. Quicker this time, but just as real. Then she was gone, the door closing softly behind her, and I was standing alone in my apartment with the ghost of her perfume in the air and the feeling that I'd just stepped off a cliff with no idea if there was ground below or just more falling. I looked at my phone. 11:38 p.m. 56 minutes ago, my life had been small and controlled and safe. Now, it was none of those things. I walked back to the coffee table and picked up Zara's drawing, the lady with sad eyes. Victoria had taken it with her. In its place was a business card, plain white, Victoria Ashford, Chief Executive Officer, Novatech. On the back, written in pen, "Thank you for seeing me." I sat down on the couch and stared at those words until they blurred. Simone's voice echoed in my head, the same words she'd said in the hospital 4 years ago. "Promise me you'll find happiness again, even if it scares you." I'd made that promise. I'd also spent 4 years breaking it because fear felt safer than risk. My phone buzzed. A text from Darius. "Well, you alive or unemployed?" I typed back, "Neither." Saturday, I'm taking my daughter and my CEO to Pike Place Market to eat overpriced donuts and pretend this is normal. 3 dots appeared immediately, then disappeared, then appeared again. Finally, "Brother, I don't know if you're brave or insane." I looked at Victoria's business card again, at those 5 words on the back, "Thank you for seeing me." I typed my response, "Maybe both. I'll let you know how it goes." But the truth was simpler and more terrifying than that. I'd spent 4 years in a cocoon of routine and responsibility, telling myself it was enough. And in 56 minutes, Victoria Ashford had torn that cocoon apart and reminded me what it felt like to want something more than safe. She'd reminded me what it felt like to be seen. And seen by someone who understood lonely the same way I did, who carried it in her bones like a second skeleton. I got up and walked down the hallway to Zara's room, opened the door quietly. She was curled up under her purple comforter, her breathing steady and even, one hand tucked under her cheek. On her nightstand sat the framed photo of Simone I'd put there 3 years ago. My wife smiled out from the frame, forever 31, forever healthy, forever frozen in a moment before cancer turned our world into something unrecognizable. I whispered into the dark room, to the photo, to the memory, to the promise I'd made. "I'm trying, Sim. I'm really trying." Zara stirred but didn't wake. I closed the door and went back to the living room. Sat on the couch, picked up Victoria's card one more time. Saturday, Pike Place Market, 10 a.m. A beginning, maybe, or an ending in slow motion. Either way, I'd said yes. I'd held her hand and kissed her and agreed to show her my whole life, medical bills and heart defects and all. The apartment was quiet again, but it felt different now. Less like a tomb and more like a place where something new might grow if I had the courage to let it. I set an alarm on my phone for 6 a.m. Zara would need breakfast. I'd need to figure out what to wear to Pike Place Market when you're taking your daughter and the CEO of your company on something that wasn't quite a date, but definitely wasn't professional either. The logistics felt impossible. The reality felt even more so. But Victoria's words kept circling back. "I'm tired of letting fear make all my decisions." 4 years I'd let fear drive. 4 years of safe and small and stable. And in one night, one accidental text message, one woman standing in my living room crying over a child's drawing, all of it had changed. I turned off the lights and stood in the darkness for a moment, feeling the weight of what I'd just done. What we'd just started. Then I walked to my bedroom, Victoria's business card still in my hand, and tried to imagine what Saturday would look like. Tried to imagine a world where this worked, where the CEO and the analyst and the 7-year-old girl with a heart condition somehow became something that made sense. The fear was still there, probably always would be. But underneath it, small and persistent and growing, was something else. Something that felt dangerously close to hope. Saturday morning arrived with the kind of crisp October air that makes Seattle feel like it's showing off. I woke at 5:47 a.m., 13 minutes before my alarm, with my stomach doing complicated acrobatics and my brain running through every possible disaster scenario. What if Zara said something embarrassing? What if Victoria saw my life up close and realized this was a terrible idea? What if Preston somehow found out and turned it into ammunition? I pushed the thoughts away and got up. Zara was still asleep, her small chest rising and falling in the steady rhythm I checked for every single night. 4 years of being a single father to a child with a heart condition had made me hypervigilant in ways I couldn't shake. Every breath mattered. Every checkup carried weight. By 8:15 a.m., I had pancakes on the table and Zara sitting across from me with syrup on her chin and excitement radiating off her like heat from pavement in summer. She'd picked out her own outfit, purple leggings, a yellow shirt with a cartoon dinosaur, and the light-up sneakers she'd begged for 3 months ago. The colors clashed spectacularly. I didn't have the heart to suggest anything else. She swung her legs under the table, her voice bright with anticipation. "Is Miss Victoria going to meet us at the fish place?" Pike Place Market. She meant Pike Place Market, but the fish place worked too, given the famous fish-throwing vendors that made tourists shriek and locals roll their eyes. I wiped syrup off her chin with a napkin. "Yeah, baby, 10 o'clock by the main entrance." Her grin was gap-toothed and beautiful. "I'm gonna show her the really big fish, and the flowers, and maybe we can get her one of those donuts with the maple glaze that makes you happy." Food is emotional currency. She'd learned that from me, probably. The number of times I'd solved bad days with treats was higher than any parenting book would recommend. We left the apartment at 9:32 a.m. The bus ride downtown took 18 minutes. Zara pressed against the window the entire time, narrating everything we passed like she was giving a tour. By the time we arrived at Pike Place, my palms were sweating despite the cool air. Victoria was already there, standing near the main entrance in dark jeans and a cream-colored sweater, her hair down again, a leather jacket over one arm. She looked nothing like the CEO who commanded boardrooms. She looked like someone who might be nervous. The thought settled something in my chest. Zara saw her first and took off running before I could stop her. "Miss Victoria?" Victoria turned, and the smile that broke across her face was unguarded and real. She knelt down as Zara crashed into her, catching the hug with more grace than I would have managed. Zara pulled back, examining Victoria's face with the seriousness of a diagnostician. "You look different without the sad eyes." Victoria's laugh was soft. "I had a good week." I caught up, slightly winded. Victoria stood, and for a second we just looked at each other. No office, no titles, just two people standing in a crowd on a Saturday morning trying to figure out what this was. Her voice came quiet, meant only for me. "Hi." The word landed soft but carried weight. "Hi yourself." Zara grabbed both our hands, completely unbothered by any weirdness between the adults. "Come on, we're gonna look at everything." And we did. For the next 2 hours, Zara dragged us through the market like a tiny tour guide with an agenda. We watched the fish throwers hurl salmon through the air while tourists screamed and cameras flashed. We wandered through the flower stalls where Victoria bought Zara a small bouquet of daisies that made my daughter's whole face light up. We ate those maple donuts Zara had mentioned, sitting on a bench overlooking Elliott Bay while seagulls circled overhead and the ferry horns echoed across the water. Victoria was different here, lighter. She listened when Zara explained the complex social dynamics of second grade with the gravity of someone discussing international treaties. She asked questions that weren't just polite filler. She laughed at Zara's terrible knock-knock jokes, and when Zara grabbed her hand to pull her toward the next stall, Victoria let herself be pulled without hesitation. I watched them together and felt something crack open in my chest. Something that had calcified over 4 years of doing everything alone. This woman, this brilliant, complicated woman was trying, really trying, not just with me, but with the most important person in my world. By noon, Zara's energy started flagging. She'd been going hard for 2 hours, and her medication schedule meant she needed to take her midday dose soon. I caught Victoria's eye and tilted my head toward a quieter corner. She nodded, understanding without me having to explain. We found a small cafe attached to the market. Zara slid into a booth, her bouquet of daisies clutched in one hand, her eyelids already drooping. I pulled out her pill case from my jacket pocket, always with me, always prepared, and ordered her a glass of water. Victoria watched this routine with quiet attention. No questions, no judgment, just witnessing. Zara took her pills without complaint, used to the rhythm after 7 years of this being normal. Then she looked at Victoria with sudden focus. "Do you have a little girl?" The question landed harder than Zara could have known. I saw Victoria's expression shift, something painful flickering across her face before she smoothed it away. Her answer came gentle. "No, sweetheart, I don't have children." Zara processed this with the bluntness only kids possess. "Why not?" I started to intervene. "Zara, that's—" Victoria held up a hand, stopping me. She leaned forward, meeting Zara's gaze directly. "I spent a lot of time working, building my career, and somewhere along the way I forgot to build other things. A family, a home that felt like more than just a place to sleep." Zara frowned, considering. "That sounds lonely." Victoria's voice cracked just slightly. "It was. It is." My daughter reached across the table and patted Victoria's hand, with the casual comfort of someone who'd never learned to be afraid of other people's pain. "Well, you can share us if you want. We're pretty good at not being lonely." I felt my throat tighten. Victoria blinked rapidly, and when she looked at me over Zara's head, her eyes were wet. She squeezed Zara's hand. "That's the best offer I've had in years." We stayed in that cafe for another 30 minutes while Zara colored on the kids' menu they provided, and Victoria and I talked in low voices about everything except work. She told me about growing up in Portland with a single mother after her father left. I told her about meeting Simone in college, how we'd been best friends for 2 years before we figured out we were in love. The conversation moved easy, natural, like we'd been doing this for years instead of days. When Zara finally announced she was ready to go home, Victoria walked us to the bus stop. The afternoon had shifted cooler, clouds rolling in from the sound, threatening rain. At the stop, Zara hugged Victoria goodbye without being prompted. "Can you come to our house tomorrow? Daddy makes really good grilled cheese on Sundays." Victoria looked at me, a question in her eyes. I shrugged, trying for casual even though my heart was doing complicated things. "You're welcome to, if you want." Her smile was small but genuine. "I want." The bus pulled up. Zara climbed on first, already claiming a window seat. I lingered for a moment, one foot on the step. Victoria's hand caught mine briefly. "Thank you for today." I squeezed back. "Thank you for showing up." Then I was on the bus and she was on the sidewalk, and I watched her through the window until the bus turned a corner and she disappeared from view. Zara pressed her face against the glass, her breath fogging it up. "I like her, Daddy. She's nice and she listens good." Those were high praise in Zara's world. Listening meant you cared. Simple as that. I pulled her onto my lap even though she was really getting too big for it, breathing in the smell of her hair and the flowers she still clutched. "Yeah, baby, I like her too." Sunday came and Victoria showed up at 11:47 a.m. with a bag of expensive coffee beans and nervous energy that filled my small kitchen. She was wearing jeans again and a soft gray Henley, her hair pulled back in a ponytail. Casual, human, mine in a way that terrified and thrilled me in equal measure. Zara appointed herself head chef, ordering both of us around while I made grilled cheese and tomato soup. Victoria followed instructions with the seriousness of someone tackling a merger, measuring butter and adjusting heat and checking with Zara every 30 seconds to make sure she was doing it right. We ate at my small kitchen table with mismatched plates and Zara's latest crayon masterpiece as a centerpiece. The conversation flowed easy, comfortable. Victoria asked Zara about school. Zara asked Victoria about running a company. Somewhere in the middle, it stopped feeling like a trial run and started feeling like something that could be real. After lunch, Zara curled up on the couch to watch a movie. Victoria and I did dishes side by side, our shoulders brushing in the cramped space. She washed, I dried. The domestic intimacy of it hit me sideways. Her voice came soft. "This is nice. Normal nice." I'd forgotten what that felt like. I put away the last plate. It's not always this calm. There are tantrums and medication scares and nights where I don't sleep because I'm listening to her breathe. She turned to face me, her hands still wet from the sink. "I'm not asking for perfect, Malik. I'm just asking for real." I kissed her then, slow and deliberate, tasting coffee and something that felt dangerously close to belonging. When we pulled apart, Zara's voice carried from the living room. "Are you guys kissing in there? Because that's gross but also kind of nice." Victoria laughed against my mouth. I pulled back, grinning. "We're just talking, baby." Zara's response was skeptical. "Uh-huh. Sure." The rest of Sunday passed in a haze of ordinary moments that felt extraordinary because they were shared. Victoria stayed until evening, helping with dinner and sitting through Zara's bedtime story routine with rapt attention. When she finally left at 8:43 p.m., Zara was asleep and I was standing at my door watching her walk to her car with the feeling that something fundamental had shifted. Monday morning arrived with the harsh reminder that work existed and professional boundaries mattered. I walked into Novatech at 8:32 a.m., and the difference was immediate. Victoria was back in her armor, dark suit, hair pulled back tight, the CEO who terrified middle management. When I passed her in the hallway, she gave me the exact same polite nod she gave everyone else. No extra warmth, no secret smile, just professional distance executed flawlessly. It should have been reassuring. Instead, it felt like whiplash. I settled into my desk and tried to focus on the quarterly data analysis Preston had dumped on me Friday. The numbers didn't make sense. Revenue projections were inflated by at least 15%. Expense reports had line items that didn't match any vendor I recognized, and the timestamps on several files suggested they'd been edited after they were supposedly finalized. I spent 3 hours cross-referencing data, my coffee going cold on my desk. By 11:47 a.m., I had a headache and a spreadsheet full of red flags. A shadow fell across my desk. I looked up to find Preston Hale standing there with his practiced smile and expensive suit. He was 43, white, with silver threading through his dark hair and the kind of confidence that came from never being told no. He'd been VP of Operations for 2 years, and in that time, he'd made it clear that advancement meant playing along with his version of the rules. His voice came smooth as oil. "Malik, how's the quarterly review coming?" I gestured at my screen. "Slow. Some of these numbers aren't adding up." Preston's smile didn't waver. "Sometimes the data's messy. You just need to smooth it out. Make it tell the story the board wants to hear." There it was, the thing he'd been asking me to do in various forms for 2 years. Massage the numbers. Make the story prettier than reality. I'd said no every time, and every time it cost me. No promotions, no raises, just stagnation while less talented analysts moved up because they were willing to bend. I kept my voice level. I'd rather make it tell the true story. Something flickered in Preston's eyes. Annoyance, maybe, or calculation. "The true story is that we're a successful company with strong growth potential. Sometimes you need to emphasize the positive." He walked away before I could respond, leaving me staring at my screen and wondering how much longer I could keep saying no before it cost me everything. The rest of the week fell into a pattern. At work, Victoria and I were consummate professionals, polite, distant, careful never to let our eyes linger too long or our conversations drift personal. After work, we were something else entirely. She came to dinner Wednesday night and Zara taught her how to play Go Fish with the intensity of a championship poker player. She texted me Thursday morning before dawn with a photo of the sunrise from her apartment balcony and a message that just said, "Thinking of you." By Friday, I'd almost convinced myself we could make this work, keep the boundaries clear, protect what we had by keeping it separate. Then Friday afternoon at 2:17 p.m., my phone buzzed with a calendar notification. Mandatory meeting, 4 p.m., conference room B. Attendees: Malik Jennings, Victoria Ashford, Preston Hale. My stomach dropped. Mandatory meetings with the CEO and your direct supervisor were never good news. I spent the next hour and 43 minutes spiraling through every possible scenario. Someone had seen Victoria at my apartment. Someone had noticed the way I looked at her for half a second too long in the hallway. Preston had figured it out and was turning it into leverage. At 3:58 p.m., I walked into conference room B with my heart hammering and my palms slick. Victoria was already there, sitting at the head of the table in full CEO mode. Preston sat to her right, looking comfortable and confident. I took the seat across from him. Victoria's eyes met mine for exactly 1 second before sliding away, professional and distant. Preston opened a folder on the table in front of him. "Thanks for joining us, Malik. This won't take long, just a routine performance review." Nothing about this felt routine. Victoria's voice was cool, controlled. "Mr. Hale has expressed some concerns about your recent work quality. I wanted to address them directly." The floor tilted underneath me. Work quality. I'd been doing the same meticulous, thorough work I'd been doing for 5 years. The only thing that had changed was my refusal to cook the books. Preston pulled out a printed report. "Your quarterly analysis came back with several flags on our revenue projections. You're questioning numbers that have already been approved by finance." I found my voice, keeping it steady. "I'm questioning numbers that don't match the underlying data. The revenue projections are inflated by 15%. The expense reports have vendor charges that don't exist in our procurement system." Preston's smile stayed in place. "That's your interpretation. Finance has a different view." I looked at Victoria, hoping for something. An ally. A sign she understood what was happening here. Her expression remained neutral, unreadable. My chest tightened. With respect, numbers don't have interpretations. They're either accurate or they're not. Preston leaned forward. "And that's the problem, Malik. You're rigid, inflexible. In this industry, you need to be able to see the bigger picture, understand the narrative we're building for investors." The narrative. Code for the lie. I kept my voice level, even as anger started burning in my gut. "I was hired to analyze data accurately. That's what I do." Victoria finally spoke, her tone professionally detached. "Mr. Jennings, the concern is whether your current approach aligns with the team's objectives. Mr. Hale has suggested that perhaps a different role might be a better fit for your skill set." The words landed like ice water. A different role. They were trying to push me out, not fire me directly, that would require cause and documentation, but move me somewhere I'd either quit or become irrelevant. Preston's voice oozed false sympathy. "We're thinking maybe a lateral move to quality assurance. Less strategic analysis, more routine testing. It would take the pressure off you." Translation: a demotion in everything but title. Less visibility, less impact, less of everything except the message that I didn't belong. I looked at Victoria again. Really looked at her, searching for something that said she was on my side, that this was some kind of test or play I didn't understand yet. But her face remained carefully blank. My voice came out harder than I intended. "I don't want a lateral move. I'm good at my job. The best data analyst on this team." Preston's smile sharpened. "Confidence is great, but it needs to be backed up by team alignment. Right now, you're not aligned." Because I wouldn't lie. because I had dignity that couldn't be bought with a promotion or threatened away with a demotion. Victoria closed the folder in front of her with a soft snap. "We'll take the weekend to review options, Malik. Please consider Mr. Hale's suggestion seriously. Sometimes a change in perspective benefits everyone." She stood, meeting adjourned. Preston followed her out, throwing me a look that said he'd won something. I sat alone in conference room B for 3 minutes, my hands clenched so tight my knuckles ached. Victoria hadn't defended me, hadn't questioned Preston's obvious play. She'd sat there and let him corner me into a choice between my principles and my career. My phone buzzed. A text from Victoria. "Not here. I'll explain later. Later." After she'd sat in a meeting and watched Preston try to destroy my career for the crime of being honest. I left the office at 5:03 p.m. without saying goodbye to anyone. The bus ride home was 42 minutes of numb silence. When I walked into my apartment, Zara was at the kitchen table with my neighbor, Mrs. Chen, who watched her on late workdays. Zara looked up, her smile dimming when she saw my face. "Daddy, you okay?" I forced brightness I didn't feel. "Yeah, baby, just a long day." Mrs. Chen gathered her things, reading the room with the wisdom of someone who'd raised 4 kids of her own. She left with a sympathetic pat on my shoulder. Zara climbed into my lap the moment we were alone. Was work bad? 7 years old, and she already knew how to read my moods better than most adults. I held her tight, breathing in the smell of the lavender shampoo and the innocence of a child who still believed the world made sense. My voice came quiet. "Sometimes grown-ups disagree about the right way to do things." She leaned back to look at me. "Did you do the right thing?" That question, that simple, devastating question, I'd been asking it myself for 2 hours. I met her eyes. "I think so. But sometimes doing the right thing costs you something." She considered this with the seriousness she brought to everything important. "Mama used to say that brave is when you do right even when it's scary." My throat went tight. Simone had said that multiple times. Usually when she was talking about her treatment, about fighting cancer even when the odds were garbage and the pain was constant. Brave is when you do right even when it's scary. I pulled Zara close again. Mama was smart. We stayed like that until the timer on my phone went off for her evening medication. The routine pulled me back from the edge. Pills, water, dinner prep, homework check, bath time, bedtime story. All the small rituals that made up our life, the scaffolding that kept us both standing when everything else threatened to collapse. By the time Zara was asleep at 8:37 p.m., I'd had 4 texts from Victoria asking to talk. I'd ignored all of them. At 9:15 p.m., she called. I let it go to voicemail. At 9:43 p.m., there was a knock on my door. I knew it was her before I opened it. Part of me wanted to leave her standing in the hallway, to let her feel what it was like to be shut out. But I opened the door anyway. Victoria stood there still in her work clothes, her face tight with strain. "You wouldn't answer." I stepped back to let her in, closing the door quietly so we wouldn't wake Zara. "What do you want me to say? That it's fine? That I understand why you sat there and let Preston corner me?" She flinched. "It's not that simple." My laugh was bitter. "It's exactly that simple. He's trying to push me out because I won't fake the numbers, and you sat there and acted like his concerns were legitimate." Victoria's voice rose slightly. "What did you want me to do? Defend you in front of him and prove that we're involved? Give him exactly the ammunition he needs to destroy both our careers?" The words hit like a slap. "So this is about protecting you?" Her eyes flashed. "It's about protecting both of us. You think Preston doesn't suspect something already? He's watching, waiting for proof. If I defend you too strongly, too publicly, I'm giving him that proof." I paced to the window, staring out at the street below. "So what's your plan?" Let him push me into some dead-end role where I'm invisible and irrelevant? She moved closer, her voice dropping. No, my plan is to buy time. Preston's making a move, yes, but he's also desperate. Those numbers you flagged, I've been looking into them. He's covering something up and he needs you gone before you dig deeper. I turned to face her. You think he's stealing? It wasn't a question. She nodded. I think he's been skimming for months, maybe longer. Fake vendors, inflated invoices. It's sophisticated enough that finance hasn't caught it yet. But if someone with your skills really dug in, understanding hit me cold and clear. He'd be exposed. Victoria's jaw was tight, which is why he's trying to neutralize you now. Get you moved to a role where you don't touch financial data. Make you so frustrated you quit. Either way, the threat disappears. I ran my hands through my hair, frustration and anger and fear all tangling together. So what do we do? She stepped closer, her voice fierce. We prove it. We get evidence that's undeniable and we take it to the board. But we have to be smart. Preston's connected. He's been here longer than me. If we go after him without ironclad proof, he'll spin it as a personal vendetta. The weight of what she was proposing settled on my shoulders. You're asking me to stay quiet. Take the demotion if it comes. Pretend everything's fine while we build a case. Her hand found mine. I'm asking you to trust me, to let me protect you the only way I can right now, which is by appearing to stay neutral while I work behind the scenes. I wanted to pull away, wanted to rage at the unfairness of it all. But when I looked at her face, I saw the same fear and frustration I felt. She was caught between her position and her feelings, trying to navigate a system designed to punish exactly what we were doing. My voice came out rough. If I do this, if I play along and take whatever Preston dishes out, you better make damn sure it's worth it. Her grip tightened. I will. I swear to you, Malik. We're going to burn him, but we have to be patient. Patience. I'd been patient for 5 years. Patient while less talented people got promoted. Patient while Preston asked me to compromise my integrity. And look where it had gotten me. But Victoria's eyes held something I recognized. The same determination I'd seen in Simone when she fought cancer with everything she had, even when the doctors said it was hopeless. The refusal to surrender. I pulled her close, resting my forehead against hers. This is going to get worse before it gets better. Her voice was barely a whisper. I know, but we're in it together now, whatever happens. We stood like that for a long moment, holding each other in the quiet of my living room while the world tried to tear us apart. Then she kissed me. Desperate and fierce, and I kissed her back like it was the only thing anchoring me to solid ground. When she left 20 minutes later, I stood at my window and watched her drive away, the taillights disappearing into Seattle's perpetual drizzle. My phone buzzed one more time. A text from Darius. Drinks tomorrow? You sound like you need them. I typed back. Yeah, I've got a story. The weekend loomed ahead, 2 days to prepare for whatever came next. 2 days to figure out how to survive Preston's games without losing everything I'd built. 2 days to remember why doing the right thing mattered, even when the cost was higher than I wanted to pay. Zara's voice echoed in my head. Brave is when you do right even when it's scary. I looked at the photo of Simone on the bookshelf, at her smile, at the life we'd built before cancer stole it. She'd been brave when it counted, fought until her body gave out, never compromised on what mattered. I could do the same. For Zara, for Victoria, for the man I wanted to be when this was all over. The fear was still there, but underneath it, growing slowly, was something harder, something that tasted like resolve. Preston Hale wanted me gone. He wanted me quiet and compliant and willing to look the other way while he stole from the company we both worked for. And for years I'd kept my head down and my mouth shut because fighting felt too risky, too expensive. But I wasn't alone anymore. Victoria was fighting too, in her own way. And if we were smart and careful and braver than we felt, maybe we could win. Or maybe we'd both go down in flames. Either way, I was done being quiet. The following Tuesday, Preston made his move official. An email landed in my inbox at 9:47 a.m. with Victoria and HR copied. Subject line, Role Transition Proposal. The language was corporate smooth, talking about leveraging my analytical strengths in a more focused capacity, but the reality was clear as glass. Quality assurance, routine testing protocols, no strategic analysis, no access to financial data, a cage with a salary attached. I read it 3 times, each pass making my jaw tighter. Victoria's response came 2 hours later, equally professional, suggesting we schedule a formal discussion with HR present. Playing the game, keeping distance, protecting us both while Preston tightened the noose. That night, Zara had a bad episode. Her heart rate spiked at 11:23 p.m., the monitor on her nightstand screaming loud enough to wake the entire floor. I was in her room in seconds, finding her sitting up in bed, clutching her chest, her face pale and her breathing shallow. My hands moved on autopilot, checking her pulse, grabbing her emergency medication, speaking in the calm voice I'd practiced with Dr. Williams 100 times. "You're okay, baby, just breathe with me, in through your nose." She tried, failed, panic flashed in her eyes. I dialed 911 with shaking fingers while administering her nitro tab. The paramedics arrived in 8 minutes that felt like hours. By the time we were in the ambulance racing toward Seattle Children's Hospital, Zara's heart rate had stabilized, but my own felt like it might explode from my chest. I texted Victoria from the ER waiting room at 12:47 a.m. Zara had an episode. At Children's, she's stable but they're running tests. Her response came in under a minute. "I'm coming." I started to type that she didn't need to, that it was late and we'd be fine. But my thumbs wouldn't cooperate. The truth was, I desperately wanted her there, needed her there in a way that felt both terrifying and inevitable. She arrived at 1:15 a.m. still in sweatpants and a Novatech hoodie, her hair pulled back messily, no makeup, looking more human than I'd ever seen her at work. She found me in the waiting room and didn't ask permission before pulling me into a hug that I fell into like a drowning man finding shore. Her voice was rough against my ear. "How is she?" I pulled back enough to meet her eyes. "Stable. They're doing an EKG and some blood work. Dr. Williams is on call. She'll be here soon." Victoria's hand found mine and held tight. "What do you need?" The question broke something in me. What did I need? I needed my daughter to be okay. I needed the medical bills to stop piling up. I needed Preston to spontaneously combust. I needed the world to be less cruel and chaotic and impossibly hard, but what I said was, coffee. And for you to sit with me while we wait. She did both. We sat in uncomfortable plastic chairs under fluorescent lights that meant everything looked sickly and wrong. Drinking terrible hospital coffee and waiting for news. She didn't try to fill the silence with platitudes. Just sat close enough that our shoulders touched and her presence steadied the parts of me threatening to fragment. Dr. Kamara Williams arrived at 2:33 a.m., still professional despite the hour. She was 52, black, with kind eyes behind wire-rimmed glasses and the kind of calm that came from 20 years in pediatric cardiology. She'd been Zara's doctor since the diagnosis at age 4. She sat across from us, her tablet in hand. "Zara's stable. The episode was triggered by stress, most likely. Her valve condition is progressing faster than we'd hoped. We need to move up the surgery timeline." My stomach dropped. "How much faster?" Dr. Williams' expression was gentle but firm. "I'd like to schedule it for 3 weeks from now. October 31st. We have an opening and I don't want to wait longer." 3 weeks. Halloween. My daughter would be having open-heart surgery on Halloween. Victoria's hand tightened on mine. I forced words through the tightness in my throat. What are the risks? Dr. Williams walked me through them like she had before during the initial consultation 6 months ago. Infection, complications from anesthesia, the valve replacement not taking properly. Standard surgical risks compounded by Zara's age and condition. The success rate was 87%, high enough to be hopeful, low enough to terrify. I nodded through the explanation, my brain cataloging details while my heart screamed. When Dr. Williams finished, I asked the question that mattered most. Can I see her? They let me in at 3:12 a.m. Zara was awake but groggy, hooked up to monitors that beeped softly in the dim room. Her eyes found mine and immediately filled with tears. Her voice came small and scared. I'm sorry, Daddy. I was at her bedside instantly, smoothing her hair back. Hey, no, you have nothing to be sorry for. Tears tracked down her cheeks. I tried to be brave like Mama, but my heart was doing the scary thing again. My chest felt like it was being crushed. I leaned down, pressing my forehead gently against hers. You are brave, the bravest person I know, and Mama would be so proud of you. Zara's hand found mine, her small fingers wrapping tight. Is Miss Victoria here? I glanced back toward the door where Victoria stood just outside, visible through the window. Yeah, baby, she came as soon as I told her. Zara's bottom lip trembled. Can she come in? I don't want to just see you and the doctors. I want to see someone who isn't scared. The request stabbed me. She could read my fear, 7 years old, and she could see right through every attempt I made to appear calm. I motioned to Victoria through the window. She came in quietly, moving to the opposite side of Zara's bed. Zara reached for her hand immediately. Her voice was stronger when she spoke to Victoria. Did you bring the drawing I gave you? Victoria's expression softened. I keep it on my desk at work, in a frame. It's the first thing I see every morning. Zara's smile was weak but genuine. Good, because you still need to remember to smile. Victoria's laugh was wet with tears she was trying to hide. You're absolutely right. They let us stay for 20 more minutes before a nurse with apologetic eyes said Zara needed to rest. I kissed my daughter's forehead, promised I'd be back first thing in the morning, and forced myself to leave even though every instinct screamed to stay. Victoria drove me home in her Audi at 4:17 a.m. The city was quiet, that strange pre-dawn stillness where Seattle felt like it was holding its breath. Neither of us spoke until she pulled up outside my building. I broke first. You didn't have to come. She turned to face me, her eyes red-rimmed and exhausted. Yes, I did. You think I could have stayed home knowing you were going through that alone? The vulnerability in her voice matched what I felt. This is my life, Victoria. Medical scares and impossible choices and constant fear that I'm going to lose the only family I have left. It's messy and it's hard and it's never going to be simple. She reached across the console, cupping my face with one hand. I don't want simple, I want real, and this is real, all of it. I leaned into her touch, closing my eyes. The surgery's in 3 weeks. If something goes wrong... Her thumb brushed my cheek. Nothing's going to go wrong. Zara's strong, Dr. Williams is excellent, and you're going to be there every step of the way. The certainty in her voice steadied something wild in me. I opened my eyes, meeting hers. I can't lose her. I barely survived losing Simone. If Zara... Victoria pulled me across the console into an awkward, desperate embrace. You're not going to lose her. Do you hear me? You're not. We sat like that until the sky started lightening. 2 people holding each other against impossible odds in a car parked on a Seattle street. When I finally climbed out at 5:03 a.m., Victoria called after me. Her voice carried clear in the morning air. Malik, Whatever happens with Preston, with the job, with any of it, we'll figure it out. Together. I nodded, too wrecked to trust my voice. Then I went upstairs to my empty apartment and sat on Zara's bed, breathing in the lavender smell of her pillow and praying to a God I wasn't sure I believed in that 3 weeks from now, she'd be okay. The next 2 weeks were a masterclass in controlled chaos. Zara came home from the hospital after 2 days of monitoring. The pre-surgery appointments piled up. Cardiology consults, anesthesiology reviews, pre-op blood work. Victoria came to 3 of them, sitting quietly in waiting rooms and holding my hand, when the medical terminology got too dense and frightening. At work, Preston turned up the pressure. The role transition was presented as inevitable at a team meeting where I wasn't given a chance to object. HR scheduled the formal review for October 23rd, 8 days before Zara's surgery. The timing felt deliberately cruel. But Victoria and I were working a different angle. She'd given me archive access to financial data under the guise of a comprehensive audit she was running. Preston didn't know I was digging. Every night after Zara went to bed, I pulled up spreadsheets and invoices tracking the patterns Victoria had spotted. The embezzlement was sophisticated. Preston had created 3 fake vendors over 18 months, all with legitimate-looking invoices for consulting services that never happened. The payments were staggered, never large enough to trigger automatic fraud detection, but consistent enough that when I added them up, the total hit $340,000. I documented everything, screenshots, cross-references, timestamps showing when invoices were created versus when services were supposedly rendered. By October 20th, I had a file that would bury Preston Hale so deep he'd never see daylight again. Victoria and I met in secret, her car parked in a grocery store lot at 10:47 p.m. on a Tuesday, to review the evidence. She went through every page with the focus of a prosecutor building a case. When she finished, her expression was grim. "This is enough. The board will have to act." I leaned back against the passenger seat, exhaustion pulling at me. "When do we present it?" She was quiet for a moment, her fingers drumming against the steering wheel. "The board meets November 2nd, 2 days after Zara's surgery." My stomach twisted. That's too close. If something goes wrong with her surgery, if I need to be at the hospital... Victoria cut me off, her voice gentle but firm. "Which is why I'm presenting it. You don't need to be there." I turned to face her. "The hell I don't. This is my analysis. My work. Preston tried to destroy my career. I deserve to be there when he goes down." Her jaw set in that stubborn line I was learning to recognize. And Zara deserves to have her father focused entirely on her recovery, not splitting attention between a boardroom fight and a hospital room. The logic was sound. I hated it anyway. "So I just hand this over and trust you to finish it?" Her eyes flashed. "You've been trusting me for 2 weeks. Don't stop now." We stared at each other in the dim light of her car, the tension thick enough to cut. Finally, I broke. My voice came rough. "Fine, you present it. But I want to know the second it's done. Every detail." She nodded. "You will. I promise." I handed over the flash drive with all my documentation, watching her tuck it into her bag like it was precious cargo, which it was. 2 weeks of late nights and careful analysis and the hope that doing the right thing would actually matter. Victoria leaned across the console, kissing me with an intensity that felt like a vow. When she pulled back, her hand cupped my face. Her voice was fierce. "We're going to win, both fights. Zara's going to come through surgery perfectly, and Preston's going to pay for every shitty thing he's done. You have to believe that." I wanted to. God, I wanted to believe that the universe could be fair for once. That courage could be rewarded instead of punished. That good people could win. But I'd watched cancer kill my wife despite every prayer and treatment and desperate bargain with fate. I knew the universe didn't care about fairness. Still, I nodded. because Victoria needed to hear it, because hope was the only thing keeping either of us moving forward. I believe it. October 31st arrived cold and gray, Seattle weather matching my mood perfectly. We had to be at the hospital by 5:30 a.m. for Zara's 7 a.m. surgery slot. I'd barely slept, spending most of the night watching her breathe, memorizing the rise and fall of her chest like I could somehow hold it in my memory hard enough to guarantee it would keep happening. Victoria met us in the pre-op room at 6:12 a.m. She'd brought Zara a small stuffed penguin holding a heart, and my daughter clutched it like a lifeline while the nurses prepped her IV. Zara was trying to be brave, but I could see the fear in her eyes. She looked so small in the hospital gown, so impossibly fragile. When Dr. Williams came in to review the procedure one final time, Zara's hand found mine and squeezed hard. The surgical team came at 6:47 a.m. They were kind, efficient, explaining what would happen next in voices meant to soothe. But all I heard was that my daughter was about to be put under anesthesia and cut open and fundamentally altered in ways I couldn't protect her from. Zara looked at me as they started to wheel her bed toward the OR. "Daddy, will you be here when I wake up?" My throat closed. I leaned down, kissing her forehead. "I'm not going anywhere, baby, not even for a second." She turned to Victoria next. "You too?" Victoria's voice cracked. "Wild horses couldn't drag me away." Zara smiled, gap-toothed and terrified, and so damn brave it broke me. "Okay, I'm ready then." They wheeled her away at 6:54 a.m. I watched until the OR doors closed behind her. And then my knees went weak. Victoria caught me, her arms strong around my waist, holding me up when I couldn't hold myself. Her whisper was fierce against my ear. "She's going to be fine. She's going to be fine." I repeated it like a prayer, like if I said it enough times the universe would have to listen. The surgery took 4 hours and 37 minutes. Every minute was torture. Victoria sat beside me in the waiting room, her hand never leaving mine. Darius showed up at hour 2 with coffee and bagels neither of us could eat. My neighbor, Mrs. Chen, arrived at hour 3 with a prayer blanket she'd crocheted. At 11:31 a.m., Dr. Williams emerged from the OR, still in her surgical scrubs. My heart stopped beating. I stood on legs that barely worked, searching her face for any sign. She smiled, tired but genuine. "Zara did beautifully. The valve replacement was successful. She's in recovery now. You can see her in about 20 minutes. The relief was so intense I nearly collapsed. Victoria caught me again, and this time I let myself lean into her completely, my face pressed against her shoulder while my body shook with the release of 4 hours of terror. Dr. Williams put a hand on my arm. "She's strong, Malik, just like her father." I managed to nod, unable to trust my voice. When the doctor left, I turned to Victoria and saw tears streaming down her face. Her voice was thick. "She's okay. Oh God, she's okay." We held each other in that waiting room while Darius and Mrs. Chen beamed and the world slowly righted itself on its axis. They let me in to see Zara at 11:53 a.m. She was still groggy from anesthesia, hooked up to more monitors than I could count, but her eyes opened when I took her hand. Her voice was scratchy. "Did I do good, Daddy?" I had to swallow 3 times before I could speak. "You did perfect, baby, so perfect." She smiled, her eyelids already drooping again. "Love you." The words nearly destroyed me. "Love you too. So much." She drifted back to sleep, holding my hand. I sat there for 2 hours, watching her breathe, watching the monitors track her heartbeat, stronger now, steadier, and feeling like I could breathe properly for the first time in 3 weeks. Victoria came in at 2:17 p.m. with update that the hospital had approved a cot in Zara's room so I could stay overnight. She'd arranged it, along with having food delivered and making sure my phone was charged and handling every logistical detail I couldn't think about. When I tried to thank her, she just shook her head. This is what people do when they care about each other. They show up. That night, after visiting hours ended and everyone else had gone home, Victoria kissed me goodbye in the hallway outside Zara's room. I have the board meeting tomorrow at 9 a.m. I'll text you the second it's done. My hand caught hers. Burn him. Her smile was sharp as broken glass. Oh, I intend to. She left and I went back to Zara's bedside, settling into the uncomfortable cot the nurses had provided. My daughter slept peacefully, her new valve keeping rhythm, and I let myself believe for the first time that we might actually make it through this intact. November 2nd dawned with Zara awake and complaining about the hospital food, which the nurses assured me was an excellent sign. She was sore but stable, already asking when she could go home. Dr. Williams projected another 3 to 4 days of monitoring, then recovery at home for 6 weeks. My phone buzzed at 8:47 a.m. Victoria, heading into the meeting, wish me luck. I typed back, you don't need luck, you have the truth. Her response was immediate. Let's hope that's enough. The next 2 hours were agony. I played cards with Zara, read her stories, helped her with the breathing exercises the respiratory therapist prescribed. But my mind was in a boardroom across the city, watching Victoria present evidence of Preston's theft to people who had the power to make it matter. At 10:53 a.m., my phone rang. Victoria. I stepped into the hallway to take it. Her voice came through breathless and triumphant. It's done! The board voted unanimously to terminate Preston effective immediately. They're bringing in forensic accountants and likely filing criminal charges. He's finished. The relief was dizzying. You did it. Her laugh was slightly manic. We did it. Your analysis was flawless, Malik. Undeniable. When I presented the evidence, 3 board members' faces went white. Preston tried to deny it, but the timestamps don't lie. The fake vendors don't lie. The offshore transfers don't lie. I leaned against the hallway wall, processing. What happens to me? The role transition? Victoria's voice steadied. Rescinded. Completely. And the board wants to offer you a promotion to senior data analyst, effective when you're ready to return from family leave, which, for the record, I'm granting you 6 weeks paid to focus on Zara's recovery. My throat went tight. Victoria. She cut me off. You earned this, every bit of it. You stood your ground when it would have been easier to cave. You did the work even when it cost you. That's the kind of person Novatech needs. That's the kind of person I need. The words hung between us, heavy with meaning that went beyond corporate restructuring. I found my voice. When are you coming to the hospital? Her smile carried through the phone. I have 3 more meetings to clean up Preston's mess, then I'm heading your way. Should be there by 3 p.m. We hung up and I went back into Zara's room. She looked up from the puzzle book Mrs. Chen had brought her. Was that Miss Victoria? I sat on the edge of her bed, grinning like an idiot. Yeah. She had a really good day at work. Zara studied my face with those 2 smart eyes. You had a good day too. Not a question. She could read me like I was transparent. I smoothed her hair back. Yeah, baby, we all did. Victoria arrived at 2:47 p.m. with a balloon bouquet and Thai food from Zara's favorite restaurant. My daughter's face lit up when she walked in, and watching them together, Victoria helping Zara with her pad thai, Zara showing Victoria every detail of her post-surgery care routine. Something settled in my chest that had been restless for 4 years. This was what Simone had wanted. Not for me to forget her or replace her, but to find happiness again, to let someone in, to build something new without erasing what we'd had. That night, after Zara fell asleep and Victoria prepared to head home, we stood in the hallway one last time. She looked exhausted but radiant, still riding the high of victory. I pulled her close, resting my forehead against hers. Thank you for all of it. The surgery support, the Preston takedown, showing up when it mattered. Her arms wrapped around my waist. You don't have to thank me for caring about you. The words I'd been holding back for weeks pushed forward. I'm in love with you. Victoria went still, then she pulled back just enough to meet my eyes, searching my face. Say it again. The callback to that first night hit me. I smiled, cupping her face in my hands. I'm in love with you, Victoria Ashford, completely, terrifyingly, for real. Her kiss was answer enough, deep and certain and full of everything we'd both been too scared to name until now. When we broke apart, both breathing hard, she rested her hand over my heart. Her voice was steady, no hesitation. I'm in love with you too, with you and Zara and this messy, complicated, beautiful life you've built. And I'm not going anywhere. I believed her. For the first time in 4 years, I believed in something beyond just survival. I believed in possibility, in second chances. In the future we could build together. We stood there in that hospital hallway, holding each other while machines beeped and nurses walked past and the world kept turning. And for once, everything felt exactly right.